21F, am I a creep? It's not a lie when I say I don't normally do what I did. I tend to stay quiet and admire from afar, but nothing further than subtle glances. I'm super insecure and am totally scared of any kind of rejection. I work at a gym, and see many of my co-workers hit on customers and even speak about them in sexually graphic ways. This has always bugged me because I'm insecure myself to work out for this reason. Well, a new customer joined the gym, M24, he was nerdy and seemed sweet, and totally committed to working out for himself. I couldn't help but feel like I had a shot, and after some pep talk from a friend, I got the courage up to ask for his number. It ultimately ended in him letting me down gently. He asked for a rain check and I keep telling myself to not get my hopes up. I feel like such an idiot because I've become the creepy guys at work that I have such a distaste for. This customer has never been anything other than respectful and I've just came in to creep all over him. I just don't know where to go from here. Is there any redemption from this absolute blunder? Edit, I feel the need to clarify at least certain issues before moving on from this experience and heeding some much needed advice. First, I really didn't expect the admire from afar comment to get picked apart. I wrote the post super early in the morning and probably didn't choose my words too carefully, especially after putting myself down all night. As it's written, it sounds super creepy. Obviously asking him out means I did let this interfere with my work, but any glances were only ever when I was welcoming him to the club or wishing him a good night. I've never gone out of my way to keep tabs on him while he worked out, or gushed about some mundane workout to a colleague. In making this mistake, I am worried for my job's sake, because it is against policy. However, part of me feels unlikely that he would complain, despite having every right to. I wasn't thinking, and in some ways I did abuse my position of power. With that being said, I would never pry into his personal information. He doesn't know that, and possibly could be scared, but I hope he isn't as worried about the situation as I am. In our snippets of conversations, he always made a point to return our small talk, which though minuscule, could have been taken as either some interest or just him being polite. The place I was coming from was admiring a respectful, young guy, motivated to make a change in his life. He was attractive to me, with an apparent positive attitude. I wasn't interested in his number for sex. I just wanted to get to know him better outside of a work setting. But I would be lying if I said my hopes weren't leaning romantically. Hindsight, I definitely could have asked better, but hey, maybe it's practice for someone else in the right place and time. The best pieces of advice have been the ones who say to carry on professionally. Some of my friends consoled me by downing this guy, but in all honesty I truly do feel bad for him. Though having been in his shoes, I haven't had someone respect me after I declined, so maybe seeing me do so will make him feel better about continuing to use our club to better himself. Thank you everyone. I didn't expect it to be split so evenly, but the differing opinions really helped me decide for myself what would be a healthy, true to myself decision. And also, I have no intentions of abusing this power again. I lived and I learned, and part of me is glad at least I didn't carry on pestering myself with the what ifs. Just a bit creepy. I would avoid hitting on clients where you work because it's unprofessional. Don't hit on your customers, be professional. Redditors, don't try to pick up women at the gym, it's creepy and weird. Also Redditors, you did nothing wrong by trying to pick up that guy at the gym. I don't necessarily think you were creepy, but as someone who also works in a gym I really think that making a move on someone in that environment should be avoided. It can be uncomfortable to work out when you know another member has their eye on you. It's way creepier to stay quiet and admire from afar though. The staffing at that place makes it sound like more of a peep show than a gym. Don't ask him again. If he's interested, he'll approach you, but don't count on it. Just be professional, focus on your job and don't make a move on customers. I don't think you need to do anything more than that. You're acting like you're some big pervert when you aren't. I just don't think it's ever necessary to try to pick someone up at a vulnerable space like the gym, no matter what gender you are. It just makes everyone involved feel awkward, and now you two have to encounter each other often and deal with the weirdness. Edit, so many comments are literally proving how awful some people are at gyms. That's why I recommend waiting till they're in the parking lot and sprinting up to them as quickly as possible when they're fumbling for keys. This allows the conversation to happen in a comfortable environment out, alone in a dark parking lot, and in a comfortable way, with a complete stranger running at you. And see many of my co-workers hit on customers and even speak about them in sexually graphic ways. The fuck? My M29 son, M5, keeps crying multiple times a day because he wants his mum, F29, to come back home. So long story short, my ex-fiancée left our family home 12 weeks ago. Check my history for the full story. At the moment our son spends 4 nights at mine and 3 nights with her. For the first while he seemed okay. My ex is currently living with her mum. Our son was excited to have more sleepovers at his nan's house. But the past few weeks he's been getting really upset around bedtime. He'll tell me he's about to cry and come to me for a hug. For a while he kept telling me he didn't know why he was sad, but after a while he told me he was upset because mummy didn't live here. I asked if he'd prefer daddy to live somewhere else and mummy could come back home. This caused him to get more upset, so I assured him I was going nowhere. I told him this will always be our home, but mummy doesn't want to live here anymore. I've tried bringing it up with my ex, but she passed it aside, saying he isn't like that with her, so she either thinks I'm making it up or doesn't see it as an issue. But recently the crying episodes have got more frequent. He has them multiple times a day. I'm starting to get really worried about him. He's at such an impressionable age, and I don't this to be some of his earliest memories. I always tell him we both still love him and we'll always be there for him. Another thing I'm worried about is the fact that my ex has already introduced our son to her new partner of a few weeks. Now my son is asking if I have a new girlfriend and if she has a new kid for him to play with. I'd really appreciate any advice I can get because I'm so worried about him. Honestly, a counselor if you can afford it. It's really hard on kiddos when a parent first leaves. Sometimes they have groups in schools if he is going that help with this sort of thing. I went to one of these school groups. It was called Banana Splits. It was a good group and I remember it being helpful to talk to the other kids and the people who ran it about some of the problems I was facing when my parents split. Talk to your ex again, explain your worries and that you think he needs to see someone and get looked at. Also maybe suggest her coming one night a week to do bedtime there if you are doing more of a co-parenting route. Have you had him call his mom when he gets like that? She could help assure him that he's okay and she loves him, daddy loves him, etc. My stepson went through a very similar thing. Would cry and get very upset sometimes about being at one parent's house versus the other. Being able to call the other parent helped him calm down. I've been there. As the kid, my parents divorced when I was around 4 years. And for years I would miss my mom when I was at my dad. We did 2 days mom, 2D dad, 5D mom, 5D dad, but never the other way around. And my mom would travel 2 to 3 times a year for 2 to 3 weeks, which I would spend at my dad's. I don't remember every detail perfectly, but what I do remember is how great my dad was. How he never told me to stop talking about my mom or asking about her. How he never made me feel like it was unfair that I missed her and not him. How I never felt he resented her for that, etc. I had a picture of my mom by my bed. He would let me call her sometimes before going to bed for a few words, and would listen to me and tell me how much he loved me even though I was asking for my mom a lot. And it had nothing to do with me not loving my dad. He was a great dad and I always loved him. I was just a young kid missing her mom. And my dad being there for me even though it was probably hard on him made all the difference in the world. What I remember from that period of my life is me looking at a picture of my mom while my dad was putting me to sleep without making me feel like I was doing something wrong. It made staying at my dad easier for me, and also helped us maintain a very strong relationship, because he was there for me, whatever I was going through. I understand it's very hard on you. I hope you manage to see it doesn't mean your kid doesn't love you too. Be there for him, let him know his feelings are valid, and he'll be so grateful for it later in life. My 29F husband, 29M, told his cousin, 31M, that he didn't know what he was thinking when he married me. 10 months ago, my husband and I eloped. We used to date in college, but we broke up and had only been seeing each other again for 5 months before we tied the knot. Our marriage has been really good, at least it seemed that way to me. Yesterday, I overheard my husband talking to his cousin. I had just come from dropping some things off for my parents, so I don't think either of them realized I was home. The cousin was telling my husband how he never thought he would get married, and my husband got really quiet. He then said he didn't know what he was thinking when he married me. His cousin asked him if he regretted it, and my husband didn't say a word. His cousins started making jokes about the situation and said something about how at least my husband gets to enjoy the honeymoon period sex, and he said, at least there's that. I haven't confronted him just yet because I have the awful habit of crying whenever I'm upset. I thought I would post here to get some advice before I do. How do I proceed from here? Too long didn't read. Husband told his cousin he didn't know what he was thinking when he married me and didn't respond when his cousin asked him if he regretted marrying me. Sometimes people do things impulsively, marriage can be one of them. Him not answering to the question if he regretted it, reminds me of an old saying we have in my country that goes like silence gives consent. Maybe he came down from the high of being in love, and is rethinking his life. I know this, because it happened with me too. I'm a guy, and once a long while ago, during a fairly recent relationship, I asked my then girlfriend to move in with me, which was marriage without bureaucracy, and months later I realized I didn't knew what I was signing up for, and spent many months more in misery trying to come up with a way to end it, and when it finally did, I felt nothing but relief. But that was me. Maybe he's in a place where he's just overwhelmed about the idea of being married. I think you should build up the strength and have a very much needed and level-headed conversation with him. But be aware that this might be the beginning of the end. I really hope it's just a phase, and everything will be fine at the end. Anyway, best luck to you. Good answer. It's a 50-50 thing. It could be that he could be past the honeymoon stage and the reality of married life is dawning on him. A lot of people encounter this stage after some time in the marriage, especially when challenges come up. Might not mean he doesn't love her. Both of them need to sit down and talk, and get some counseling sessions if needed. Talk time, gentle, honest and heartfelt. Does he regret the married part, or the being in a relationship with you part? Does he regret getting married too soon? It may be bad, or it may just be one of these that can be resolved with more time. Aim to say something like this: I'm willing to bet it's related to getting married after 5 months. That's absolutely bonkers, even if you had dated in the past. Who wouldn't regret getting married that quickly? Just tell him you overheard him and his cousin talking and you need to know what you meant and how he feels with your marriage, and before he says anything you tell him you only want the truth. Hope all is well. That absolutely sucks. It is okay for you to cry and to feel what you're feeling. It may be of some comfort that this comes early rather than a decade later with kids and a lot of shared assets. Or after resentment leads to bitter fights and a hateful divorce. Annulments were made for times like this. As much as it hurts, it may be for the best to talk to him about annulling the marriage and moving on. Husband, I heard what you said to your cousin. I need to know if you want to stay in this marriage.